For more information on our top stories and others, please visit our website, channelstv.com. youtube.com/channelsweb has videos of our shows. A federal high court sitting in Abuja has disqualified the APC deputy governorship candidate for Bayelsa State, Mr. Bio Barakuma Degi Eremeyo, from participating in the November 16 governorship election. Justice Inyang Ekwo, in his judgment, upheld the arguments of the People's Democratic Party that Mr. Degi Eremeyo gave false information in support of his candidacy to the Independent National Electoral Commission. The PDP had asked the court to regard the discrepancies in the deputy governorship candidate certificates as major impediments to his candidacy, including providing different names at all levels of his education. Justice Ekwo also upheld the arguments of the PDP that the affidavits sworn to support the changes in the names were insufficient to validate the changes. Meanwhile, Mr. Bio Barakuma has described the judgment of the Federal High Court disqualifying his eligibility as deputy governorship candidate as laughable. He insists he is a solid senator of the Federal Republic who has the minimum qualification to contest the election, and his credentials are before the court, having contested elections over and over. According to Mr. Bio Barakuma, there is room for appeal and the judgments cannot stand the test of time. The National Industrial Court sitting in Lagos has fixed December 17th and 18th for trial of over 1,000 bank workers affected by the recapitalization exercise of 2016. The defendants in the suit are the Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, and the Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation, the NDIC. At the proceedings this morning, the court was told that one of the defendants, the NDIC, was not present or represented by counsel in court. The court granted another adjournment to enable the defendants file their reply to the interrogatories filed earlier by the ex-bank workers. The other defendant, the CBN, is particularly asking the court for a short time to file its reply after accessing its archives, which are spread all over the country.
Since 2006, our employers, the banks that did not make the 25 billion naira threshold of the share capital required by the Central Bank of Nigeria, lost their licenses, and the promises to give us our terminal benefits by Central Bank at the inception of that exercise have not been kept. That's why we're here. We're over 1,000 people. And so what you have here is just a cross-section of the rest of us. So more people will be here by 17th and 18th of December by the grace of God, because we must continue this case until justice is served.
Let's get some more news now from Linda Kigbe in Abuja. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Amarachi. Welcome to Abuja. The Deputy Speaker of the Gombe State House of Assembly, Honorable Shuaibu Haruna, has been impeached. 21 out of the 24 members of the House voted in favor of his impeachment today for allegedly disobeying an internal order to boycott all executive functions. The impeached Deputy Speaker has been replaced with a lawmaker representing Kwame West, Mr. Sidi Buba. The motion to impeach the former Deputy Speaker was moved by Adamu Pata, representing Yamotu East. Sources at the Assembly complex speculated that the impeached Deputy Speaker attended a swearing-in ceremony for commissioners after it was agreed that all lawmakers should boycott all state functions of the executive. A bill to establish a national commission for the prohibition of hate speech has been introduced in the Senate. The bill is sponsored by Senator Abdullahi Sabi and prescribes life imprisonment for anyone found guilty of hate speech and death by hanging where hate speech causes loss of lives. Within 1 week, the Senate has introduced 2 bills to regulate the social media space. The Protection from Internet Falsehood and Manipulations Bill 2019 and a bill to establish a national commission for the prohibition of hate speeches. The bill to establish a national commission for the prohibition of hate speeches is listed in Tuesday's order paper for first reading. Some of the highlights of the bill include: the objective and purpose for which the Commission is established is to facilitate and promote a harmonious, peaceful coexistence within the people of all ethnic groups, and more importantly, to achieve this objective by ensuring the elimination of all forms of hate speeches in Nigeria, and to advise the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on all aspects thereof. Any person who commits an offence under this section shall be liable to life imprisonment, and where the act causes any loss of life, the person shall be punished with death by hanging. Reactions have been pouring in over the introduction of these bills. A coalition of civil society organizations visits the Senate Minority Leader to express their displeasure over the introduction of the Protection from Internet Falsehood and Manipulations Bill 2019, also known as the Social Media Bill.
Social media is now seen as the last impediment to an emerging fascist and totalitarian state in Nigeria. We therefore most respectfully and reverently urge your leadership to side with Nigerians and impress it on your colleagues not to support this obnoxious bill that seeks to attack the last hold of the common man.
What I can assure you, and I can assure Nigerians, is that this Senate cannot be a party to removing the rights of Nigerians to whatever is enshrined in the Constitution.
Executive Director, Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, in an interview with Channels Television, says the Senate should focus on enacting legislations to better the lives of Nigerians rather than seeking to stifle free speech.
Using taxpayers' money to waste or siphon public taxpayers' money in the name of trying to say you want to set up a commission that will just unnecessarily consume public resources, when we are talking about reducing the cost of governance.
Both bills will now have to pass through the legislative process, part of which will include getting the views of Nigerians during the public hearings. Officials of the Department of State Services today fired gunshots and used pepper spray to disperse protesters who gathered around the headquarters of a service to demand the release of a detained convener of Revolution Now, Omoyele Sowore. The convener of the protest, Mr. Deji Adeyonju, was addressing the media on the reason behind the protest when truckloads of operatives, some with masks, arrived on the scene and chased them away. Some of the protesters who defied the order later scampered for safety as an operative pulled out his service pistol and shot several rounds into the air. Another operative also used pepper spray to force those who were seated to flee. Mr. Sowore, who is standing trial for alleged terrorism, is being held at the Department of State Services despite a court order granting him bail.
We are gathered here because the DSS said that the reason why they will not release Omoyele Sowore and Bakare is that because nobody came to receive the due. And we came on Saturday to receive them. But they told us, they said they were working, that it was not a work day, yes, and that most of their guys were off duty, okay, and that we should come on a working day. And here we are, despite all the intimidation, harassment, okay, and threats, we have come on a working day. Release Sowore, our brother, to us. Yes. Release Omoyele Sowore now, and Bakare to us. Yes. Now. The court has already ruled. Now. Yes. That they should be released. You have acknowledged that indeed the court has ruled. Yeah.
The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, says there is a strong connection between drug abuse, corruption and rising cases of crime in the country. UNODC's country director, Mr. Oliver Stope, made the observation at the 10th Annual Anti-Corruption Conference by the Center for Peace and Environmental Justice in Abuja. Meanwhile, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General says monies recovered from corrupt individuals will be used to fund the 2020 budget.
Officials of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, members of the civil society organizations, government officials, as well as traditional rulers are in this hall to brainstorm on the effects of corruption on national security.
A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Addressing the gathering, the representative of the Attorney General of the Federation decries the effects of corruption on national development. She also highlights government's efforts to tackle corruption, noting that recovered stolen funds will be used to fund the 2020 budget.
Permit me to state here that no government has taken steps like President Buhari's administration to recover funds of illicit origin. These funds have also been paid into the Federation accounts and are being used to fund the national budget.
The presence of traditional rulers and college students in the hall is to stress the fact that there is the need to enlist the support of traditional institutions to combat corruption, drug abuse and insecurity among young people. A recent report by the United Nations shows that over 14 million people in Nigeria abuse drugs. Majority of that number are young people between ages 25 and 39. Participants at this conference believe that there is a strong relationship between drug abuse, corruption and the rising cases of insecurity in Nigeria.
Essentially, we have to recognize that at present there is a multi-dimensional security threat that the country is facing. It is about the insurgency in the north, but it is also about raising crime rates, and it's of course also about the drug use, which is also in itself a security threat to the young people in particular in terms of their health.
Corruption gave birth to insecurity because today, most of the young generation, when you look at us, the syndrome of getting richer at the age of less than, even let me say from the age of 17, 18, 19 to the age of 45 is extreme. Today, one of the trending issues is cybercrime. Cybercrime is an issue of insecurity.
Corruption, drug abuse and insecurity are some of the problems confronting Nigeria at the moment. Experts say there is need for a strong collaboration with government in order to effectively tackle these problems.